All right, welcome to Creator Hardware, where today we're going to take a look at my custom 4K editing workstation. Now, I built this workstation specifically for editing 4K footage. Everything I do is recorded in 4K and I have to deal with it. I specifically built this system to handle it. So let's talk about the components involved in it, how I built it, and, well, how it does. All right, first off, the monkey in the room, the case. Now this is a Be Quiet Dark Base 900 Revision 2. And honestly, I bought it because I liked how it looks. It looks like my toolbox. So that's why I got it. It's a cool looking case. It's not exactly the perfect case for airflow, but we'll talk about cooling here in a little bit. Got a 3950X for it. The 3950X is a 16 core, 32 thread, multi-core processing beast. Why? Because of Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects. They don't leverage multi-cores as well as they could, but they do leverage multi-cores. Now, I originally had planned on doing a Threadripper build, which is even more cores, more threads, but cost kind of said, nah, I really don't need that much. It was a little overkill for my needs. You know, the cost is significantly higher than even this. The lowest tier current generation Threadripper is $1,500 up to, well, $3,000. This was $750. Now, this is not current generation. I built this before Zen 3 came out, so it's not the current generation, but does fine for my need. Now, I used a ROG Strix X570-E gaming motherboard for it. Now, memory on this computer, I specifically wanted 64 gigabytes at 3600. My other editing system has 32 gigs, and especially in After Effects, you can easily run through that without any issue. So I wanted 64. I have 64 gigabytes of Trident Z Neo in a 4-stick kit, 3600 speed, which is optimized for AMD. For storage, I have two M.2s, both from Corsair, 1 terabytes. I use one as my operating system drive and another one as a scratch drive. I put all my raw footage on it, edit off of that scratch drive, and then export it to my main drive, upload it to YouTube, and it keeps my main drive not almost full all the time. 1 terabyte, you start storing a bunch of 4K footage, runs out pretty fast. Now, once I've done editing that, I archive it to one file on my main drive and my scratch drive. I keep all of my raw and finished footage, and when the month is over, I transfer those files to a 4 terabyte hard drive that's down in the basement. Temporary for right now. Now, one of the things issues I ran into while I was building this, it was during the human malware issues. Getting stuff was kind of hard. Power supplies were on a huge back order. I lucked out and was able to get a 1300 watt EVGA power supply from Amazon. It was cheaper at Amazon than at my local Micro Center, which isn't local to me, but it's in Atlanta. So I wanted to make sure I had a beefy enough power supply, because the original plan for this was actually to have a 3080 in here, which, if you're interested in all in computers, you know, well, they're back ordered and I'm not paying scalpers prices. Now, when I was trying to get a graphics card, they just weren't available. Nobody had them. So my original plans were kind of well, kiboshed because I couldn't get one. So I wound up compromising and got a NVIDIA RTX 2080 Super. I wasn't paying scalpers prices for a TI because they were running about $1,500 to $1,800 when I was looking, and this was $700. Now the big thing that I'm sure everybody will notice is the cooling system. Now I have a custom water loop in here from Corsair. I have some issues with Corsair's water cooling. The water block for the CPU is good. The pump reservoir, I like. Looks good, all that kind of stuff. Their tubing sucks. If you're going to do custom water cooling, do regular PTEG. Do not use the acrylic from Corsair. It is a pain to work with. Also, their configurator on their website, because I bought everything direct from Corsair. I use their configurator. I have one of these, a 420 millimeter radiator. The configurator said I could fit 2. It is completely wrong. It does not fit a 420 in the roof with my motherboard. It physically will not fit and screw in. I might be able to add a variation of 120 millimeter wide radiator in the future, but one for 140 fans will not fit. Now I do have another radiator just like that, so my CPU is currently cooled by a single 420. Now that is not a problem. It just was an annoyance because it was money that I really didn't need to spend. I have an extra radiator that I really can't return, and I'm kind of stuck with it till I build something else that needs a 420 millimeter radiator. One of the other things I ran into was, if you've ever done custom water cooling, various adapters are needed that, you didn't think about, or you need one more or something, and that was a huge problem. One of my issues was everything took a long time to get. I have a drawer full of fittings now. Why? Because I got tired of waiting and I went ahead and finished the system and wasn't 100% happy about the tubing runs. Like the tube that runs right here isn't straight. Why? Because I couldn't get an adapter to space it out so it'd be straight. Like I've got a ton of extra fittings for my next build, but it kind of didn't help me until I tear this one down, drain it, and redo the tubing. My initial plan was actually to have a water-cooled graphics card as well, but because of everything going on and I couldn't get a 3080, I just kind of said, screw it, I need to get this done, and just did an air-cooled 2080 Super. I might go back once I finally can get a 3080 and maybe water cool that one and just leave it as a 2080 Super in here. Sufficient for my needs. The 3080, 3090 is kind of just bling factor, but I was not able to do the plans that I had planned because of, everything going on. The rest of the cooling, I have 6 ML140 fans from Corsair. They're the maglev bearings, and of course I've got a Commander Pro and the stuff that has to come with Corsair, which it came with it anyway because the pump is powered by that Commander Pro as well. Taking a 4K 10-minute video, I can export it in about half the time. So if it's a 10-minute video, I can usually have it exported between 3 to 5 minutes. So really good at, what I need it for. I need it to edit videos. The whole reason I built this. Overall, I'm very happy with how it performs. Even on a longer export, temperature-wise, it will not exceed about 60 C. Nowhere near thermal limits. Cooling is more than sufficient for my needs. Now, quick note about water cooling. I'm a firm believer in an editing PC, you should at least have an AIO, all-in-one water cooling system. Why? Because an air cooler can only shed so much heat before it becomes thermally soaked. It's just a chunk of metal with a fan. You can only shed so much heat for so long. When you're rendering a longer video, it's easy for that cooler to get overwhelmed. You hit thermal limit, it starts throttling to save itself, and it takes longer. With a AIO or a custom water loop, when you export and it's a long export, it takes way longer for that water to become heat soaked. So while they're in a lot of tests, they'll show the same results. The problem is that heat soak amount that a cooling system like the water can handle is much more sustained. So it takes way longer for a water cooling system to become heat soaked and actually hit thermal limit. So that's why I prefer doing editing systems on water. The other two PCs I built in this house are on air coolers. They're both on Be Quiet's air coolers. I've got a 10700K in my wife's PC, does fine. My 7700K in my kid's computer, air cooled, does fine. That's the main reason I went water cooling on mine, is because video editing, you're outputting for a while. To give an example of that, I had a bunch of OBS files that I had to transcode with Handbrake over to 1080p MP4. So I literally transcoded video files for an hour. Familiar with Handbrake, it's CPU intensive. It doesn't use NVENC encoder, it doesn't use the graphics cards, it uses the CPU. So on that run, I got to 70C, still well below, max temperatures. But if I was using an air cooler, it'd have been struggling at that point. I'd have had to let it sit and let it cool down. Nope, I just kept going, and it just soaked it up, took more, didn't care. That's why I went on water. Now let's talk the stuff that goes with the computer. Initially, when I built this system, I wanted to do a triple monitor setup. And, well, availability. I wanted to do 3 Asus ProArt displays. If you're not familiar with the Asus ProArt monitors, they are very color accurate monitors. They are designed for video editing, color grading, and everything like that. Depending on the size and the resolution, they're pretty affordable. Now the 4K versions are really expensive, but the 1440p panel I have isn't. It's actually cheaper than the 1440 gaming monitor I have next to it. So I wound up, during the whole human malware, I went with 2 monitors, and I pulled 2 older HP monitors. I put one on my gaming PC as my hardware monitor, whatever monitor, and had just 2 monitors on this for a while. I have since added a third, now that it's available, Asus ProArt display. I use that for Premiere Pro to view the video so I can have very color accurate representation of the video. Now I will be replacing the other 2 monitors at some point with more Asus ProArts, but not right now. They're $300 a piece, so I have monitors that work, so until I get a wild hair at my, I'm gonna deal with the OCD of having mismatched monitors. I also bought a Corsair keyboard and mouse. Wireless charging, wireless mouse. Now, I'm not happy with these. I don't like how this mouse feels. It doesn't tell me when the battery's about to die, as I found out when I went to video edit today. is it was completely dead. I was in the middle of an edit, had to stop everything and go charge it. It's got a small position that you can place this mouse on to charge on this charging pad. You bump the table, you shake the mouse a little bit, it stops charging. So I'm not happy with this. It's a G7 103. It might not have gone as well with my color scheme because obviously orange, but it was one of the things that I really didn't realize how much I would dislike that mouse. I don't like how it feels. I don't like this little outhang thing that kind of right there where it puts your hands right next to these buttons so you wind up hitting them accidentally as I'm doing stuff on my computer. My Corsair keyboard is fine. Wireless keyboard that I wired. I thought better of wireless because, well, the same reason of the wireless mouse kind of gets on my nerves because charging tends to, you know, well, middle of an edit, all of a sudden the keyboard doesn't work. You're sitting there having to reset and recharge, and I just decided to keep it wired and wish I'd have gone with something less expensive. Overall, very happy with this system. A lot of fun building it. It fits my needs. It allows me to handle After Effects. It allows me to handle Premiere Pro. It allows me to export and continue working because while I'm exporting a Premiere Pro file, I'm doing a thumbnail. So it allows me to multitask. I like that because I don't like sitting around looking at my computer and, well, doing nothing. And that was one of the problems I had. When you get a lower system like my old 7700K that used to be in my other PC, kind of didn't want to multitask. It kind of put a little bit of too much stress on the system and you were more likely to have crashes, screw up, and you're, well, not doing anything, and you have to redo your timeline because it crashed and didn't save to where you can use it again. Definitely happy with it. Hope you like this video on my custom 4K video editing machine. As always, hit record, hit upload. Thanks for watching. This is Creator Hardware.